Welcome everyone to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast, the podcast focused on leadership. The episode will begin shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the podcast.
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Dr. John Bedker Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, John Bedker. Well, this podcast was founded on the notion of the critical need for leadership. We're living in a turbulent, tumultuous world, and certainly in the United States in particular. It is a very difficult and troubling time. Unsettling would be an understatement. So, where are we? The United States government has shut down. There were so many other topics I really want to get to, people I want to highlight as exemplars of leadership, so many good and positive things to talk about. I mean that sincerely, but there is no way to overlook what is going on in the United States. That turmoil, that turbulence is present every single day, and now has led to a shutdown of the United States government. So, this podcast is all about leadership. So many things, so important, but what does it really boil down to? And I say this all the time. Leadership is about doing the right thing. We know what it is. It's not a secret. It's not a surprise. We know what the right thing is. And frankly, folks, we also know what the wrong thing is. The challenge of leadership, though, is knowing that, to have the strength, the character, the conviction, the heart and soul to do the right thing. So, what has happened here in the United States? The largest economy in the world, and some of our world's leaders, certainly the President of the United States, has now put this country where it is unable to function. The U.S. government is not open for business. It has no funding. The U.S. government is currently controlled by the Republican Party. They control the House of Representatives, the Senate, and they control the White House, the presidency of the United States, in Donald J. Trump. A trifecta, if you will. The Republicans are in power in the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They are the leaders in control. The government shutdown is really a colossal failure of leadership. It is a glaring example of doing the wrong thing, which of course is the opposite, the antithesis of leadership. And we're seeing it in real life and in real time. Well, we need to ask some obvious questions from the position of leadership. And let me be very clear, as I always am, not politics. Let me emphasize that. This is a podcast about leadership. What should leaders do? What is the right thing? People's lives are being affected. More lives will be affected in the days to come. I'm going to take a few moments to do the problem identification. Those of you that are regular listeners know I stress the importance of making sure that we really and truly understand what the problem is. Problem identification. But I more importantly stress that once we get there, and it typically does not take long to get to an understanding of the problem identification, that what leaders need to do is to spend the majority of their time, the bulk of their time, on problem solving. But let's begin so that we understand the problem identification. What are those events, actions, activities that have led the United States government to shut down? Well, certainly there are a myriad of reasons, a myriad of events that have led to the shutdown. But one of those things from a leadership point of view that we have to be really clear about is that as leaders, we have to deal with the facts. We have to deal with the truth. Not what we think, not what we'd like, but factually. Let's identify the problem factually. We all know how critical trust is. As leaders, it's absolutely critical. We only win trust by exhibiting trustworthy behavior. We know this as leaders. We live by this as leaders. Telling the truth, not once in a while, but all the time. Well, folks, for those leaders in Congress that have chosen to shut down the government, this would be a good start. Tell the truth. So, again, a myriad of reasons and events. I'm only going to give a cameo, but that cameo is emblematic of this larger series of events. So, we're going to take a look at what is really one of the main cruxes, and that is healthcare. At the very epicenter of the Democrats' position and how they have voted, and similarly on the Republican side in how they have voted. Again, votes that have led and continue to lead to an ongoing government shutdown. Republican leaders, from the president, Donald Trump, on down, have made repeated claims that the Democrats want illegals to have health care for free. They sensationalize this position by alluding to their, in quote here, facts, in quote. Trust me, folks, these are not facts at all. But that's how they represent it. So think about trustworthy behavior. That these people are murderers, rapists, drug dealers, and more. They're terrible people. Well, we know for a fact that the majority of people that ICE and Border Patrol have arrested, have taken into custody, have no criminal record whatsoever. Not only are they not any of the things that are regularly attributed to them, but they're good citizens. And perhaps I should not use that word. Good residents. They work for a living. They pay taxes. They obey the laws. They may not, in some instances, have U.S. citizenship. So let me correct myself, but be clear, they may not have that. Unfortunately, there are people that have been arrested that are U.S. citizens, but just because of the color of their skin, where they were standing at a particular moment, for instance, outside a Home Depot, causes these ICE agents masked to take them into custody, put them in a car, and take them to places that people don't even know about. Sites. All right. So, what do we know? We know that the Democrat position is basically this: that this big, beautiful bill, as it's called, brought on by the Republicans and passed, is certainly big, but may not be beautiful. It, in fact, has substantial, huge, significant cuts to health care, in particular Medicare and Medicaid, and does damage to the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, such that many, many people, perhaps 70% of people in those circumstances, have purchased insurance because of its Affordable Care, ACA, component, that now that those tax benefits for these people may very well go away, or be reduced in such a way that their premiums, these notices are going out starting today, may double or more. And that 70% of people in these categories may find themselves unable to pay those premiums. They may become uninsured because of the incredible rise in costs of the insurance because of this big, beautiful bill. The Republicans think the Democrats should be okay with that, and that all they're asking for, again, go back to that trustworthy behavior, is for the Democrats to agree to a, in quotes, clean continuing resolution, CR. Well, you destroy health care for millions and millions of people. You raise their premiums double or more at a time when they could hardly begin to absorb those kinds of costs, and then say that it's a clean CR. Well, trusting a leader is based upon trustworthy behavior. To suggest that this is a clean CR, folks, is honestly not true. It is a major, a substantive, a substantial reduction in health care for those in need, people at the lower ends of the socioeconomic ladder who need our help. All right, so quick update here. I'll read a bit from the New York Times. Government shutdown. These are live updates, just came out literally moments ago from the Times. Bitter deadlock in Congress over federal spending. It's going to affect services across the government as many workers are furloughed or working without pay. President Trump has threatened layoffs if Democrats continue fighting. Now think of the word right there, fighting. They're standing up for those they represent. They're standing up for those they serve, for those, frankly, they care about. for people that may lose their health care. Problem identification, put a little cap on that here. All these cuts, what are they for? To pay for tax benefits for the very top end of earners and corporations. The rich get a benefit and the poor pay for it. And so these Democrats continuing fighting, as the New York Times states, is continuing to represent those they serve. As services that many Americans rely on were upended Wednesday by a government shutdown, dueling proposals to end it failed in the Senate for the third time in 2 weeks, as neither Republicans nor Democrats could muster sufficient bipartisan support. While critical services continue to operate, Social Security would be one, Medicare benefits another, a sprawling mass of other federal functions has ground to a halt because of the first government shutdown in nearly 7 years. The affected services range across the government, such as assistance for veterans transitioning to civilian life, health-related communications from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, data collection, economic analysis like the jobs report set for release on Friday. Most civil litigation out of the Justice Department has stopped. No new education grants are going out. Cleanup at some Superfund sites has stalled. Some federal employees are working without pay, while the rest have been furloughed. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is trying to reframe the sticking point with Democrats as one about immigration rather than health care. He pushed the misleading talking point that Democrats have shut down the government to fund free health care for unauthorized immigrants. Vance seems to be arguing that because the Democrats proposed to fund the government would restore an Obamacare subsidy for lawfully present immigrants, that they are supporting immigrants with illegal status. So again, the truth, the facts. It is literally against the law, folks, to provide Medicare and Medicaid to an illegal. Literally against the law. And yet the Vice President of the United States is trying to say that the Democrats, one, are responsible for the shutdown because they're attempting to give free health care to illegals. Absolutely false, not factual. And more importantly, the Democrats don't control the House. The Democrats don't control the Senate. They do not control the presidency. The Republicans control all three. Since the campaign that elected President Trump and Vice President Vance last year, Vance has often argued that immigrants who were allowed in the United States during the Biden administration under a temporary emergency program were brought to the U.S. illegally. While the Trump administration may not like the program, those immigrants entered the country legally. So again, this trust and trustworthiness, so critical. We think about problem identification. We have to recognize that one side has tried to represent those they serve, and the other side has chosen to lie about their key position. So folks, when we think about problem solving, which is really where we need to focus. Really do need to sit down. Really do need to negotiate. You really do need to deal with the facts. And the facts are these. We should not have shut down the government. It is a terrible thing. It's an onerous thing. It does harm to people, certainly in the United States, but frankly, globally, as the largest economy in the world. We have to deal with facts. And the facts are, do we as a country, this is about leadership and doing the right thing, do we as a country want to take from the poor and give to the rich? Is that who we are? Is that putting our American values proposition to good use? And the answer, folks, is simply and absolutely clearly no. We need to help those in need. Leaders need empathy. They need understanding. They need caring. They need to recognize that everyone needs to pay their fair share of taxes. That we do not need to take from those in need to give a benefit to those not in need. That is not the right thing. Okay, let me end there, but tell you this government shutdown is endemic to who the Republicans are. Sad to say. This podcast is absolutely about leadership, and I will tell you that the Republicans are failing on leadership. President Trump would like, I do believe, for there to be an autocratic state, a move from democracy to an authoritarian place where he and other of the rich have the authority, and everyone else needs to suffer to ensure their benefit. Folks, this is the worst of leadership. We must be clear about it. This is a failure to lead. Okay. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Hopefully there'll be some resolve. In any event, we'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tell your friends, and of course, please follow our podcast and subscribe. Thank you again for tuning in.